Welcome to week 6, which today we're going to look at indexes. Our example today is for students in a course on film. The source files are going to be PDF documents about the film, critiques, reviews, analysis, things like that. And we're going to use a number of techniques here for the various indexes to associate the content files with images. Let's see how that's going to work. Now, the first thing to do is to start up the Greenstone Librarian interface and create a new collection, and we're going to call this one week 6. Now, if you've got the Dropbox software installed, you can actually just go right off to the Gather tab and browse down through your home folder down to the Dropbox LIS 9720 week 6, and inside there's a files folder that contains 5 PDF files and 5 matching JPEG images, and you notice the file names are the same for both. The only difference is the extension. Now if you have the Dropbox software installed, you can just drag these into your collection window. If you don't have Dropbox software installed, you can use the web interface to download them to somewhere on your hard drive and then gather them into your collection. Now we've also got an images folder in there that has a number of images, the banner for the website in 2 sizes. We've got a JPEG called poster, which we're going to use with the 3 movies. You notice we've got 3 movies in there. Why 3 movies in, well, it's the same movie, but in 3 different formats. It's because not all web browsers support all formats. So this gives us a way by having 3 to make sure that whatever web browser someone's running, they'll be able to view the movie. So drag those into the images folder of your collection that you just created, which was called week 6. Next step is to get rid of the useless indexes, so it's off to the Design tab, where first we're going to remove, from the search indexes, we'll remove EX source, no need to search file names, and the DC title one, so delete those. Then it's off to Design, Browsing Classifiers, to remove the useless file name index. So select the EX source one and delete that index. Now click Create and Build the collection. What you see at any build is a log that shows you what happened during the build. This is also saved to a file. It's very important to take a look at this to see what happened. Now you notice a couple things have happened here. Only 5 PDFs have been processed. What happened to the JPEGs? Interesting. They don't get indexed by the collection. They're brought in and associated with those PDF files, but they're not really part of it. We also see that those PDFs were converted into HTML. So Blade Runner PDF is now bladerunner.html. That's the Greenstone converted document. Now if you click Preview and take a look at the titles index, we'll see the default format, which consists of 3 columns and a table. First column is the Greenstone converted document format, that HTML one we saw earlier. It has the default icon that when clicked goes to the document text level, which is by default the Greenstone converted document. The second column contains the source file icon, and this varies depending on your source file. In this case we have PDF files, so it's a PDF icon, and that is hyperlinked using source link to the source document. So when clicked it will display the original PDF. The third column contains the default metadata. Now to find out what happened to those JPEG files, we're going to modify the first line of the code for the titles index. So it's off to Format, Format Features, and we'll select Classifier 1, CL1. And what we're going to do is add an image source docimage code to it, and we'll set the size of it to be width of 70, height of 70. And this will display the JPEG image that has the same file name as the PDF. Let's see how that works out. Okay, we've added that code and previewed. And what do we get? So what we've done here is give the first column is the associated image. You see it's really just a movie poster for the movie. The second column has the PDF. Now we can hyperlink that to the original PDF, or actually if we change the source icon or the source link to just plain link, we can hyperlink that to the document text level. The third column, we've got the title, such as it is, not all that great, it's extracted. And you notice I've put in the location, so you could see where is that JPEG being held. So it's brought into the collection, but not indexed, and it's given the name cover.jpg, and it's put into the same folder with the PDF document it's associated with. Now we can use this technique of the associated JPEG or cover image for a number of things. Rather than showing generic icons like a PDF icon or a Word icon, we can actually take a screenshot, let's say, of the first page of the document and display that instead, right? Because that's the associated image with that. So for example, the person could get a preview of the document before they click on it. So this might be useful in certain cases. Now before we can make any indexes, we need some metadata that those indexes will be based on. So we're going to have to do some cataloging. So we're going to only catalog the PDFs. We don't have to catalog the associated images. So you notice selected Blade Runner. I've put in a title. Now this is not the movie creator. So it's not the creator not really tracking the movie stuff. So we're not tracking directors or actors. That would be a different audience. That may be an audience of movie enthusiasts. This is an audience of students in film studies. So what we're really cataloging is the document about Blade Runner. I put some subject keywords in. You notice I've used the separator, the vertical pipe symbol, because I'm going to build a hierarchy index on that. There's no sense probably making an author index here. I may make one. I put the date in. The trouble with the date format is you notice I've got 0101. Why? Because dates have to go in as YYYY, MMDD. If you don't know the month and day, I've faked it by putting January 1st for all of them. This is not really good, but it's a problem with dates. I've also indicated the type of resource. Is it a review, an assignment, academic paper? And I've in DC source, I've copied the code from YouTube, the embed part. So I've got the URL of the embedded video that I'm going to use later. And I'm cataloging Cloud Atlas pretty well the same. You notice I'm indicating the number of pages because that may be of interest to students. Different articles, one may be a 36-page critical analysis of Cloud Atlas. Could be a one-page analysis. Could be a thesis on Cloud Atlas. So the student may want to decide on different types of materials to read in preparing for to discuss or an assignment on this particular film. Here's the other metadata for another one. This is rollerball. Nothing's particular to note about this. You notice this document has a bit more information. For example, I put a resource identifier in. I'm not going to actually use that index. I might display it at some point. It might be useful for the person to know. So that would be handy to put in. And here's the last one. Now, you notice because I'm just using this as an example for illustration of some techniques, there's a huge flaw in my design here. The design I've set up basically has one file, be it production notes, a review, an academic paper, associated with one movie. So it's a one-to-one relationship. So it's a list type index in which there's a movie, has one document. Now this is not realistic for a course on film studies. More likely we would have a number of documents associated with the movie. So for example, we may have the review, the production notes, academic analysis, critical blah blah blah. So 4 or 5 documents or more associated with one film. So my design of this index as a list one won't work. In fact, I would also have to change how I'm doing the associated JPEG cover image. Right? I will have to make more of them with the same name as the other files, and at that point I probably would also want to make a DC creator one and put the title somewhere. So maybe I need a DC title would be the title of the article, and then in another DC element I would store the movie title and build the index on the movie title. And with an AZ compact list, then the movie title would be an entry, and then all the documents about that movie would be collated underneath that. But what we're doing here is a simple design just to illustrate some techniques. So it's not a correct design, but it will allow us to show what's going on. Okay, well, let's move on and create this collection. Now, the first step is to create the indexes. Our first index, off to design and browsing classifiers, we're going to create a hierarchy type index. This is very, very useful for things like subjects or locations where you want to drill down. So we're going to set the metadata to be DC subject and keywords, and we can do that by using the pull down, which is less prone to error than typing. Our next index is going to be based on the type of document, which we stored in DC resource type. We're going to select AZ compact list for that, so we have categories, add a classifier, and set the metadata using the pull down to DC resource type. Next index is a dateless type of index. We're going to select dateless from the pull down, add the classifier. Now, and we're going to set the metadata to DC date. We're using a date list, so we had to have our date data in YYYY-MM-DD. Otherwise, it won't work. It'll crash your web server. So, if we don't really have months and days, should we be using that? Probably not. What you would do then is put the years in DC date and use AZ compact list. Now, AZ compact list will work for dates that just have years, but it's not as nice a format as the date one. We'll see the difference when we get a little farther along. So if you want to use a date list type index, but your date data is not in the right format, you've got to make it in the right format. Otherwise, you're going to crash your web server. So here, for example, if I had only years, I've gone in and added faux months and faux days. Now, this is not really great, but it's the only way you can make a date list type of index. Once your indexes are designed, you can create and build. So here's what we've got, the four types of indexes. The titles one, of course, is a simple list type. It's a one-to-one relationship, one document, one title. So that's fairly straightforward, easiest type to format. Our second one is the date list. And you notice the format of it. We've got the years, they're nicely arranged, then it shows the months, and then it has an icon and then a title and a formatted date. Now we can change that format, and we're going to do that. Now, the trouble with date lists is all your dates data must be correctly formatted. If you have one record with bad date data, it's going to cause a mess. So it's a very picky kind of format. The next one is, the next two are AZ compact lists, where we have index nodes, where the user can drill down. Sometimes it's just one level, sometimes it's two, and then we have the records that meet that index entry all collated underneath. So if we were drilling down to reviews in the document types, we see there are two files or documents that are under there. You notice the format is the default one, which will have to be changed. In fact, pretty well all of these formats have to be changed. So let's add the format, or modify the format for our first index, which is CL1. So click on Format, Format Features, select CL1, and then change the HTML format string code. What we're going to do is, instead of the default, we're going to create a two-column table. The first column is going to have the movie poster image, which is stored in the variable doc image. So we're going to add a image source tag, and we're going to make it a certain size, so width of 100, height of 150. We're then going to hyperlink that using the link/link command to the document text level. So it's going to go to the converted one. Now later on we're going to fix up what happens when it gets down there. So that's our first column. Our second column is basically just going to display the metadata. So we've put in some labels, title, type, pages, and then we've put the metadata in. Now, you notice dates get a nice format if you use an attribute before it. So format :DC period date will make a nice date format. The other problem we had is that there are multiple occurrences of subject, right? So each document may have multiple subjects associated with it. That's not a problem if we use the sibling command. So what we've done here for the subject one is use the sibling attribute, and then within the brackets we formatted it. And what have we done? The all says use all the values. The ampersand NBSP semicolon is a space. So we put a space in. Then we're putting in I think that's a diamond if I remember correctly. That's an HTML character code. And then another space. And then the actual subject. So we're going to format the subject display a little bit. Let's see how it works out. And there's the preview of our titles. Not bad. So we have in the first column the associated image, which is the movie poster. In the second column we've got the metadata. Now notice how our subjects came out. We've separated each subject entry with a diamond. I'm not sure if that's appropriate, but neat. The trouble, of course, is those the pipe symbol between the hierarchical levels of that. You can replace the pipe. It's tricky, but you can use another symbol, but you've got to specify in your index for that what symbol you're using. So you can get around it, but it's a little tricky if you're going to display these things. So no easy way around that. Now our titles index is a list type, so it's fairly simple to format. The other list type of index is search results. Search results by default use a list type of index. So if we copy our working code, we know it works, we saw it, we tested it. From titles, we can actually paste that in, the same code, into the search results, and it should work. Let's try it out. So here I've done a search, and yes, the code, which we knew worked for titles, will work for search results. Now this is a useful technique as well. If you've got code that you know is working, you can reuse it by copying and pasting it, and that eliminates a source of error. Okay, let's format the next index, which is CL3, the date list one. So if you click Format, Format Features, and select CL3, we can then change the HTML format string into something that's going to display two columns. Now our first column will be the year and then the month, and the second column will be the metadata. Again, you notice the code is very similar to what we had in the title and search results code, because we know that format code for the metadata work, so why not reuse it? That also gives you a consistent look and metadata across all your indexes, which is important. The user doesn't want to go into one index and see a totally different format from a different index. Consistency has value here. Now here we finished putting in the format code for the date list, so we preview it, and what do we see? You notice it's quite different, but it's actually nice. Now I've not added any additional formatting of the fonts or anything like that, the size or whatever. We can adjust those to make them look nicer. But what we get here in the date list is a nice one organized by date, and then the records that match that date underneath it. You notice we've also used the hyperlink, not an icon hyperlink, but a text-based hyperlink. The theory being users will understand what underlined colored text is. It's a hyperlink. You can click it. Icons sometimes don't indicate that they can click. They lack an affordance that indicates to the user how they should be used. So here we've got an alternative method of displaying an index. Now our first couple indexes were easy to format because they're basically list type. It gets more complicated when you run into categories. So if we click on Format, Format Features, and select CL2, which is a category type. It's the hierarchy index for the subject ones. Because there's several levels here, we have to use macros, and particularly the if command to write the instructions for what to do for each level of the index. So we can test out where we are in the index by using the numLeafDocs variable. So if we create a macro using if and then bracket numLeafDocs, what it's going to do is look for the existence of numLeafDocs, which only applies to index nodes or categories, because numLeafDocs contains the number of records that match that index entry. So the first comma indicates what to do if it's true. If it's true, we're at the index node level. So we're going to put link. We're going to display the title. Now, you say, why are we displaying the document title? It's not the document title because we're not at the record level. We are at the index node level where EX title contains the text of the index entry. So we're going to hyperlink that to the index entries. Now, if we're not at that level, then we're down at the document level. What are we going to display? So the second comma is what happens if the expression is false. There's no numleaf docs, thus we're at the record level, so we're going to display the document image, the JPEG, and we're going to hyperlink that to the document text. And the other column basically is going to check to see, okay, are we at numleaf docs? Yes, we are. We're at the index level, so display the index entry. If we're not, then display all the metadata for the record because we're at the record level. Okay, let's test it out. So if we do a preview and go into our subjects, we can see we have a subject index that we can click on an entry, and notice we can drill down. So if we click science fiction, we see there's androids, time travel, etc., etc. We can select one of those entries and it goes down to the record level. So our code is working. If you don't get this, you're probably missing something. Probably a bracket, a comma, slash, something like that. It's usually a typo. So go back and check carefully. So you notice also here we've dispensed with the icons making links. We're using text-based links. Now again, we can format these to make the text larger and various other things. Right now it's using the greenstone style, which makes the hyperlinks green. That's controversial because blue underlined text is obvious a hyperlink. People have learned from experience that that's a hyperlink that can be clicked. If you change what it looks like, they may miss the fact that this is a hyperlink. Now off to our last index, which is CL4 AZ compact list type on the resource type. Now, because this is the same index type as our subject ones, yes, we can take the working code we've got from our subject index, copy it, and paste it into this one. Okay, now that we've previewed our type index and see it all works, there's one other detail we forgot to put in. All indexes must indicate the number of records they contain. This is a great service. It's for the user. Makes your collection much more usable. When the user is drilling down or looking at something, they can say, oh, there's 2 records under filmmaking, so I'll take a click on that. Oh, there's 1 under conceptual film, I'll click on that. Makes it easier for the user to navigate your indexes and make decisions about where to go. So you have to add this. Now, the number of records an index entry contains is stored in the variable numleafdoc. So all we have to do is edit the first line of those 2 indexes that are AZ compact list and add a little code. So what we're doing here is adding basically the display information for numleafdocs. We're going to put it in brackets and make it italic. Okay, now that the indexes are all sorted out, what's next? Well, let's fix up the document text. What we've done is made it so that when the user clicks down to a level or clicks on an index entry in a record, they get sent to document text. By default, that is the greenstone converted document. If you have documents such as PDF, Word, RTF, there will be text there. If you've got things that are non-textual, MP3s, JPEGs, or other sorts of files like that, there'll be nothing in here. It'll say this document have no text. In any case, we have to fix it up. But our first part is to get rid of the document buttons. We don't want the highlighting and detach. Those are best done in the browser. And we're going to get rid of the document heading that it adds to every document by default. So let's remove those. And now let's create the code for the document text level. What we're going to do is create a table with a bit of spacing around it. It'll have no border so you don't see it's a table. We're going to use this to lay out stuff. The table is going to have 1 row and 2 columns. The column is going to be on the left side. We're going to create an iframe tag. I've made this 420 by 315 pixels high. So the iframe is a container. It's basically like the old frame things. It's a mini website in itself that we're going to embed a movie. So where are we going to do it? So one of the attributes of iframe is the source attribute. Now we've put the URL of the movie on YouTube in DC source. So what we do is put DC source in quotes, and we're going to put a border on it, frame border of 1, and that's going to embed our movie for this particular document. So the user can click on that to watch the movie. The second column on the right is just going to have the metadata. And again, we're using a little bit of formatting to display that. We've also decided to add, which we need, a link to the PDF document that this is supposed to be all about. So I put a read PDF and I've used source icon so it shows the default PDF icon. Now, this would be better if I replace that with the nicer PDF icon, but it will still work. And we use source link and /source link to link the PDF icon to the original document. So if they click on that, they can read the file. Okay, so here's what our document text level looks like. There's the table with the 2 columns. We've got the movie preview. You click the play button and you watch the movie. Now this is just a theatrical trailer on YouTube, but it could be the entire movie. Then we've got the metadata on one side. I've formatted it a little bit. I couldn't figure out how to get all the subjects values on one line underneath. Well, not on one line, but on multiple lines underneath. Because the problem is, what if there's only one subject, or what if there's 2 subjects? And you notice my code does handle the menu label of saying subject if there's one entry, or subjects with an S if there's multiple entries. But I couldn't figure out how to format the multiple entries in a way I really liked. And then we've got the read PDF, and you can click on there. Now we can also add other value stuff here, hyperlinks to the Internet Movie Database entry for this movie, hyperlinks to websites about the movie, interviews, etc., like that. So, but it works. You can see how we could use this now. The user is drilled down. They have all the information they need for this particular record. Okay, let's format the home page. First, we want to add a banner. So you go up to Format, General, and browse to find the banner we want for the About page. I've created 2 banners, one wider than the other. I think I ended up using the shorter one, 800 pixels wide by about 100 high. It was about the right size for a greenstone one. I created the banner in PowerPoint. It was fairly easy. I created a text box, put the text in, and then went off the internet and grabbed an image and stuck that in the text box, and then grouped the 2 things together with the group command, and then exported that text box with the grouped film on it as a image, a PNG, I think what I did, or a JPG. PNG actually I exported it as, and then brought it in. I adjusted the size of the exported image a bit using Microsoft Picture Manager. If you're interested in these things, there is a handout, I think, in the lecture notes, plus there is a movie on the website and YouTube channel on how to use both of those programs. You could also use Photoshop or the GIMP to do the same thing. Now the last bit is to add some description of the collection to the home page. This again is a fairly simple layout. I'm going to create a table of 1 row and 2 columns. What I'm going to put in it though is I want to put an embedded movie. Not one that's on YouTube, but one that's in the images folder for this collection. The trouble with movies that are not embedded, as in out on the web, but that you have local, is that not all web browsers support all movie formats. So we're going to have to use a bit of code to get around that. I'll show you in the next frame what that code is. So here's the code I used for the home page. The more interesting part about is the video tag. I've used an HTML5 video tag here to create a box of 320 wide by 250 high. Now, rather than have the video show whatever preview is the first frame or some other frame, it's a bit random sometimes, I've decided to create my own preview. So I have a image called poster.jpg that I've put in my images folder. So I'm using the poster attribute to specify what the preview should be for the movie. And this is going to apply to the 3 versions of the movie. So I've had to create 3 versions because not all web browsers support all versions. Internet Explorer is very bad at HTML5 support. Firefox, for various reasons, does not support MP4 or a couple other ones. Now, you may encounter a web browser that does have the support because the person's added a plugin, but natively they don't. However, by putting 3 versions in, I'm going to probably hit 80% of the browsers out there are going to support. So what it does is fallback. If it doesn't play the MP4 or support it, it goes to the open source OGG Vorbis one. If it doesn't support that, it'll use the HTML5 WebM one. And if it doesn't support any of those, it's going to say, too bad your browser doesn't support this. Let's see how it's going to work. And there it is. So we've got a little bit of description, and in the second column to the right we have our poster as the preview, which is just a scan of the case of the video, and we have a play button and the play controls, and whatever web browser you open this up in is going to play in, except for very old ones. So that's what you have to do if you've got video that is local. It's a lot easier to use embedded video that's on the web, because it's going to use Flash, and most of the web browsers will support Flash. So that's it for today, or this week. We've looked at different kinds of indexes. We created a collection using different kinds of indexes and added a little bit of formatting. We created a banner. You notice my banner has white, so the background of my banner matched the background of my pages, which is a better way of doing it. If you have a background to your banner that's colored, you should really make your pages match the same color. It looks much more integrated. It doesn't stick out as much. Okay, see you next week.